Welcome to WSJPDB Radio, Conversations with Gary Palmer. Enjoy the program.
Hey, welcome to WSJPDB Radio's Artist Interview, Gary Conversations. I am totally happy with the person I'm going to introduce. An amazing musician. We're going to talk about his background because he has a very interesting background. But not to hold him up any further, let me introduce you to Evan Carydakis. Evan, how you doing?
Gary, I'm doing great. I'm really stoked to be on here. Thank you so much for having me. Great.
Oh, no. I tell you, we love having you here. And we're going to go ahead and kind of really jump into this because I know you're busy, you're recording, you're touring, you're working. You got so many other things you're doing. So I'm not going to take up a lot of your time. But I like to get our audience to get to know you and get to know who you are and what you've been doing and what you have planned going on and things of that nature. So normally I would have a million questions for you, but I'm going to tailor it right down. Just some basic questions for you. Please. Well, first of all, let our listeners know where you're talking to me from. I know you're in Australia, but where?
Well, Gary, I'm on the southern island of Australia called Tasmania. Did you ever watch cartoons when you were younger and you remember the Tassie Devil?
Yes.
That's where I live now. I used to be from the city of Melbourne in mainland Australia, in Victoria. That was my hometown, but I moved here about 11, 12 years ago.
Wow.
I met a lovely girl and I married her.
Okay.
Gary, I said to her, I'm not moving to Tasmania. You're coming to Melbourne to live with me. And 13 years later, I moved to Tasmania.
We will never ever win those fights. Whatever is on our mind may not be on their mind, so we just go ahead and we just do what we have to do. That's what being a man is. See, we stood our ground, right? Didn't we?
Exactly.
We stood our ground. We stood our grounds, and we just made a point. But it is great. Just to let you know, this is my first interview I'm doing with an artist through the radio station WSJPDB Radio. So I'm just so thrilled to have you. You have a very diverse musical background, but before we get into that, what age did you start playing the saxophone?
Well, I would say late, comparatively speaking, late. I think it was around, it might have been around 15, 16, 17. I first started playing guitar.
Okay.
And then I remember what made me want to play saxophone was we had a record store back in my hometown called Allen's Music. And they used to sell, Gary, you and I remember vinyl. They used to sell vinyl.
Yes.
I popped in there one day. I'm scrolling through the vinyl and I come across this album by a gentleman called Branford Marsalis. You might know him.
Yes.
His album was called Royal Garden Blues. It opened and there was a center photo of him. And I believe it was a purple or blue suit with his saxophone in a garden of, I think it was roses or camellias. And I looked at that photo and I said, man, I want to be this guy.
Wow.
That's what made
Oh, absolutely.
That was the start of it.
So are you the only one in your family is a musician, or is it, siblings or anything like that?
It's all of us.
Oh,
it's all of us, Gary. I've got an older brother named George who was a bass player. He still plays bass, but and I've got a twin brother.
Wow.
He's my twin, non-identical.
Okay.
He plays bass too. So he currently is my producer and he's my taskmaster. He tells me how bad I am and where I need to improve. And, I just have to keep getting up and keep doing better. He's really good. He's got a great set of ears. I trust him.
Right.
And so we grew up in that musical household. And because there's a big gap between me and my twin and our older siblings, like 13 years, we sort of had two generations of music in the one household. And we were listening to stuff like maybe Earth, Wind and Fire and Stevie Wonder and the Doobie Brothers and Sting. And I grew up listening to all the great jazz artists like Dexter Gordon, Sonny Rollins, John Coltrane, those guys. And then later on is when I got into smooth jazz, because it's, for me, that genre is a better reflection of the way that I grew up. I didn't grow up in New York or Kansas City. I grew up in my home where there was a bigger palette of music that we grew up listening to, and I think our genre that we play in now is a better reflection of how I grew up.
Right.
Yeah. Right. That's why I love it.
So you were inspired to play the guitar. Was your twin, was he already playing the bass at that time when you were playing the guitar, or?
He was.
That's kind of happened. Okay.
He was. You want to hear of a fight? We had an argument as we when we were kids. I can't remember what over at that age. He had an Electra bass. It was his first bass. It was an Electra bass, and for some reason I took it and I dragged it on the ground and I scratched it, and he got my guitar and put a big hole in it. That was the end of my guitar playing, and that was probably a good thing.
Wow. I tell you, it's to see where you progressed, and I see where I read that you won several awards. In 2022, you won the American Tracks Music Award for the best jazz track. You won the One Earth Award in 2022. You received the gold for best contemporary instrumental single, and a silver in the best jazz single. And then on your track from last year, Moving On, you were Global Music Awards winner in 2023 with a bronze medal in composition and a bronze medal in instrumentalist. And number one, congratulations.
I'm very proud of that.
Who has come really, and we all know you put your work into it, you put your heart and soul to it, and you were doing this, and just like what I was, you're working a 9 to 5.
Exactly.
Exactly. And like most musicians in this field are working that 9 to 5 and still doing something that they love doing. And so how has this song, the purpose, and how did this song Cherry Pops come about in the title of the song?
You know what? It's a very interesting story. It's the story of man and dog. You know how they say man's best friend is a dog. We had this beautiful Kelpie. She's an Australian Kelpie. She's a working dog, or what they call a cattle dog. And this country grew on the back of those animals, because they used to do the work of 10 humans. So we had this beautiful dog, and she got canine lymphoma, which I never thought animals got lymphoma or anything like that, but they obviously get very similar diseases to humans. So she for 13 months she did chemotherapy. She got one remission of 4 months, then we got her back on chemo again, and unfortunately just before Christmas of last year she passed away. We had to put her down because the heart started giving out. Wow. And that little girl there, that little dog, is the inspiration for this song. And why so? Because, for those 13 months, she continued to live her best life.
Right.
And never complained, always smiled, always there for you. And I guess they're a good example, maybe, for how humans should live their life.
Yes.
Don't you think, Gary? They don't want very much. They're always giving, and they're always loving and always caring. And she was a great pet. I loved her very much, and she was the inspiration for this song. Wow! And that's the story behind the song.
Wow, that's amazing. Other than the music, what other hobbies or interests do you have?
I love aviation. I always watch little aviation videos on YouTube. I love that. I'm into finance. I'm always watching the markets or understanding how crypto works, why everyone trades in the US dollar. This, I'm into that as well, and understanding how all that works, because it's very important if you want to be in this world to a certain extent. You've got to understand how money works. So they're my two favorite things outside of music, I would say.
Wow, that's amazing, because I think for you that's probably the best place to be, with the financial aspect and the music and the recording aspect, because a lot of those things kind of mesh and go together. So, and that's sometimes how a lot of musicians kind of get themselves into trouble, because they don't know the financial component and the other component of performing and touring, and there's budgets that have to be put together, and so a lot of musicians hurt themselves for that. So I think that's definitely a plus on your side of having to do that.
Hey, that's a great point you make, Gary, because on that first album we made, Blues House, my brother was a producer, and I'd always tell him, no, we can't do that. That's not in the budget. And he wouldn't get upset. He said, what are you talking about? I said, it's not in the budget. He goes, it has to get done. I said, no, we've got a budget. We're sticking to the budget. And that's how you have to work.
Right.
Otherwise, costs can get out of control. Yes. I understand he was coming from the side of being a perfectionist and wanting everything done regardless, but no, always work to a budget and keep a spreadsheet of my costs so I know where I'm at. I can tell you every cent I spent on music this financial year, down to the cent.
But that's good. So all you listeners that are wanting to be recording artists, please take heed to what Evan is talking about, maintaining your budget, sticking to your budget. I know you want to put the best product out there, but you also have to look at the bottom line. And that's what's very important, that you just can't just go, I'll spend the extra $10,000. I'll go ahead and do it. And then when you need it, it's not there.
Exactly.
And I shouldn't have done that. So I think that's definitely one of the things that I think that's very important. I'm glad you shared that with us today, because it's really, really important, because I think sometimes folks take for granted that, I've got the best thing and I can spend as much money as I want to spend on it. And not knowing that there's budgets, there's production, there's marketing, there's promotion, there's, all these back end things that that artists have to do. So,
production is only, I wouldn't say a small part, but it's not the biggest part of the cost of going to market with a single, like you just said. Marketing and promotion. Now, a lot of people come to me after I've allocated my marketing budget. I know who I'm going to work with.
Yeah.
And they come and they say, blah, 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 we've got this, and that. And I love these people, but I just have to be honest with them. And my answer to them is, I'm sorry, I've already allocated the marketing budget for this release. Can we touch base for the next release? I just be honest with them, because I don't keep spending beyond my budget. That's it. And some of them are great offers, and some of them are great people that I've worked with before and had success with before. But if the budget's allocated, I don't move forward. Right. But I'll be honest with them and tell them why. Right. It's very important to be honest. Very.
I agree with you, Ed. Are there any musicians you would love to collaborate with?
The one I'm collaborating, the musician that I collaborated with on this song, Cherry Pop's, Michael Whitaker. I'd love to, and I can't wait to collaborate with him.
Good.
On the next single that we do, because I tell you, he's a Nashville musician, and they have a reputation. And let me tell you, he upheld that reputation. He was a gentleman to work with. He was easy to work with. He's a brilliant musician. He's got incredible ears, and I can't speak highly enough of him. And he's certainly someone that I look forward to. And I do
how do you come up with your ideas for your music? Is it melody first, or is it the rhythm first? Is it,
I'll tell you. So firstly, as far as inspiration, it can come from a point of discipline where I sit down and say, you're writing these songs from a discipline perspective. on this single, as we've already discussed, it was from a point of emotion.
Right.
Other singles, it's been a point of place, like memory of where I've been. How do I write? Usually, I come up with a set of chord changes. That's how I start. On my little scoring program, I like those changes. Put them in on a piano.
Right.
And then I'll sit down between a MIDI scoring program and my actual instrument and start jamming and developing a melody. And then once I've got say a verse and a chorus in, I'll then go and develop the rest of the song.
Right.
So, extrapolate on the melody, create some different chord changes, maybe a breakdown, start adding the other instruments. And then once I've got a basic sketch of the entire song from start to finish, it'll go off to my brother. We'll pre-produce it. And in the case of Cherry Pops, once that was done, we then sent it off to Michael, who took it to another level. So that's how it's usually done. So there's several steps in the process. Yeah.
Right. For someone who is looking to get into this business, what advice would you give someone who is an up and coming, who hasn't really started anything yet, or they're kind of thinking about it? What kind of advice would you give?
Hey, Gary, you know what Stevie Wonder said once? He writes every day. So my advice is the same as his. Start writing your own songs and start writing every day. There has to be a point in your life. I shouldn't say that. My experience is there's a point in my musical life where I stopped playing other people's songs and started playing my songs. And looking back, the earlier you do that, in my opinion, the better. And my number 2 point is, you cannot be everyone. Right? You can't be everything for everyone. Just find your own voice and be yourself.
Right.
That's very important.
Absolutely. So tell us about the new single. I know it's on the charts. So if you can kind of let folks know about that and where they can find it and where you can purchase it or stream it or anything like that.
Yeah. So the new single is called Cherry Pops. It in its first week on the Radio Wave Groove chart, it entered at number 66. So I'm hoping it works its way up at least to the top 40. That's the number I've got my eye on. It's in the Smooth Jazz Global Top 100 chart at the minute, and it was number 20 on the Radar chart. Right. So I hope it continues to rise. Folks can stream it on all your regular streaming platforms, including Spotify, Apple Music, or you can go to my website, www.evancarydakis.com.au, but it's available on all streaming platforms. And I hope you enjoyed it. It's been a pleasure to make that song. And
it is. It really is. And I just tell you, I as a radio station radio announcer, and I deal with Smooth Jazz Global, and I deal with Radio Wave, and great bunch of folks to be working with to get your product out and to be able to have the world kind of hear what it is that you're doing. And I'm proud to say I am a reporting station to those folks.
I know
that you described as well. So I tell you, I love the song. I love what you're doing. I will be following you. I'll be following what you'll be doing. I tell you, I'd be glad when you can come over here to the States when you start performing. I know you've got, I don't know if you can know it off the top of your head, but I know you have some tour dates, some performance dates that you're doing, locally.
Yeah, locally. Next month, we're off to Canberra for 2 nights and Melbourne for a night. Canberra's our capital city, so we've got 2 nights there, 1 night in Melbourne. Then we do a pause. In October, we do a couple of nights in Sydney, 1 night in Brisbane. And as far as international performances, I will say I've started. We've done a booking blast with Smooth Jazz Global, so we've started to send out a dossier to to festivals around the world. We've had a positive response so far
Good.
from the San Jose Jazz Festival, the Singapore Jazz Festival, and one other festival in Europe. So, you know, they're the leads, Gary. And as you know, you've got to turn leads into sales, and the hustle never ends. So that's what I'm trying to do now.
That is a perfect thing there. And I tell you, and I know they're tied in with Florida. So hopefully one of these days we get you to come to Florida.
That's the plan, sir.
There's quite a few festivals that go on here in Florida. And I'll tell you a little hint that we're trying to create one here in the Treasure Coast of Florida. So I've got some meetings coming up with some folks to try to do something in the Treasure Coast area of Florida, because there's really no festivals going on in this particular Florida, like north of us, Pensacola, Destin, on the West Coast, in Daytona, there's a lot of festivals. But this is an area that's really not set up yet, and that's why I have the station. I'm utilizing the station for that purpose as well, to be able to bring that same thing here to the Treasure Coast, to the residents here, because as I talk with people in my area, they're looking for that, you know, looking for someplace closer where they can go. They don't have to do that long driving to go, you know, south for an hour and a half, or go north for an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours. So that's a little secret. We won't tell anybody. But
I think that's fantastic. I'm looking at you and listening to you, and I can see the passion that you have for this music and that festival. And needless for me to tell you, but if you carry that passion, I'm sure that festival will get up and it'll be a success. But you and I know, man, it's a lot of hard work.
Yeah,
but I'm wishing you love and success, because I know you will do it. And if there's the opportunity there, like you said, man, it could be great.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. And I don't want to take any more of your time, because I know you're busy, but I just wanted to just reach out with you, get a chance to talk with you, get a chance to hear what you're doing, what's going on. And as we leave, I have your new single in the background again. I was kind of playing some of your other music in the background as well. But I wish you, Evan, all the best in all your musical endeavors. Tell Big Brother I said hello. And,
I will.
And keep telling him that, yes, that I agree. We must stay in the budget.
I'll keep saying that. Thank you, Gary. I really appreciate it.
So I wish you all the best. Have a great weekend, and we'll be talking hopefully again soon about some other projects and other things you're doing. So
I hope so. Evan, you take care of yourself.
Take care of yourself, all right? Be good.
All right,
everyone, take care now.
Bye-bye.